What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Classic Octane. So if you have not been following along, I am in the middle of my new shop truck daily driver build. This is a 1964 short bed F100 that I am building into a truck that I plan to daily drive. So I bought a wrecked 2017 GT Mustang. We pulled the complete Gen 2 Coyote and 6-speed auto, as well as the complete IRS out of that car to live in this truck. We paired that last week with a complete Crown Vic front with the electric Mustang power steering. So that was all done with a kit from Range Industries. Today we are moving on to utilizing yet another kit from Range to install this IRS unit. Before I can actually start to get this into the truck, we need to do a couple of small modifications to this thing. First thing we have to do is remove the factory springs and shocks. Springs are obviously easy enough. They're just sitting here at this point. Shocks are just a couple of bolts through the bottom. Next, we need to unbolt the sway bar. We're going to be utilizing a sway bar relocation bracket that comes in the kit. These are the two brackets that are included in the kit. Super simple. Basically, these two larger slotted holes are going to go up and utilize the factory bolts I just took out. Then we're going to slide the sway bar mount up into place, use the 4 bolts included in the kit and these threaded holes. So basically what this does is just relocate the sway bar just a little bit further back than where it was factory. The next step is going to be to prep the frame. So what you need to do is remove the front leaf spring mounts as well as the shock mounts. I already did that just to kind of go through a couple different options for how to remove these rivets. The best option I personally found was to take a grinder, grind off the head of the rivet. Once it's flat, center punch it, drill the center probably a 1/2 inch deep with like an 1/8 inch drill bit. Follow that with a 3/8 drill bit. Last step, take a punch, stick it in the hole, hit the punch with a hammer, pops the rivet right out. So you have to do kind of 4 on this leaf spring mount, 3 on the shock mount that originally went right here. Once those are out, then we can actually put our bracket up into place. So this is the front bracket. It utilizes these 2 holes, go into the rearmost holes from that original spring mount, and then these 2 holes match up with the bottom 2 of the shock mount. So you can see just like that. Also has this hole right here in the center. This was just a mount for the brake line. That is also utilized right here. So 5 out of the 6 holes in this bracket just utilize existing holes in the frame, which is awesome because that's less drilling for us. It also is confirmation that this is in the right spot. So I'll throw that up on there with 5 of the 10mm nuts and bolts that came in the kit. Later on, we're going to be doing this rear bracket. So this one, I believe this front hole and maybe this rear hole match up with some existing holes in the frame. It even has this little cutout for this factory rivet. So you can kind of confirm that that's in the right place right there. I don't think we need to do that just yet. The kit wants us to install this front bracket on both sides, wheel the subframe back here, put it up in place, and then we potentially have to notch part of the frame for upper control arm clearance. Got the rear end to back here, and this little locating boss right here on the bracket should slide right into our front mount on both sides. That'll make sure everything's nice and square and where it's supposed to be. Don't have the rear brackets on right now. We're going to kind of lower the truck down, raise the subframe up, whatever we need to do to meet the 2. And this is what we're going to potentially have to notch the frame to clear. So this is the kind of upper control arm mount. Which will contact the frame most likely in this little area right here. So we're going to lift it up. We'll take a Sharpie and just kind of mark where on the frame it's going to hit. And then we'll end up taking a little chunk out of each side. And we should have all the clearance we need. I have the frame marked out where we're going to cut. To do this, we're going to utilize a new tool from our channel sponsor, Eastwood. This is their VersaCut 60 plasma cutter. This is the first time I'm going to be utilizing it. It does have the option to run on 110 or 220. Lucky for me, I have a 50 amp 220 right here by the garage door for my air compressor, so I'm going to utilize that. But you can go all the way up to, I want to say 20 amps on a 110 volt outlet. So technically we could get away with cutting this 3/16 thick frame rail on 110, which is cool. No reason for me to do that here since I have 220 available. So we're set up and ready to go. I have ground off part of the rust on the frame just to make sure we have a really good ground. And I got to set up on about 20, maybe 22 amps, something like that. Should be more than enough for this 3/16 frame rail. I imagine it's going to be a little bit hard for me to see my cut line once the helmet goes dark, but we'll just see how that goes. You can remove this little thing, but since I haven't plasma cut in 20 years, I'm just going to keep the little safety guard on for now. I'd imagine we'll probably remove that in the future, but let me turn it so I can just kind of... Okay, here we go. Make sure there's nothing that's going to catch on fire or anything. Should be fine. A little janky, but not too bad. And there we go. Obviously it's going to need some cleanup with the grinder, probably my little belt sander, finger belt sander. But, I mean, that's awesome. To be able to just cut relatively thick metal that quick, and obviously I'll get better at making it smooth and how, you know, quick I need to move and all that kind of stuff. But, oh man, what an awesome tool to have in the shop. Got the cuts all cleaned up and went ahead and hit them with some chassis black paint just to keep anything from rusting that's bare metal. Eventually I would like to have the bed and the cab off of this frame, wire brush the whole thing and give it a full coat of paint, but that's a little bit further down the line and I just don't want this thing to rust in the meantime. Now, next step is going to be to put the subframe back over here, lower it down, actually bolt up the front, then utilize the subframe rear mounting hole, bolt it to this bracket. That will give us our final position of that rear bracket. Mark the holes, drill them, then we should be able to bolt this thing up for the last time. With those last few holes drilled, I was able to just bolt up the brackets and get the subframe back in place. All of that is officially mounted now. I did have to utilize just some square tubing with holes drilled in it 12 inches apart just to act as a temporary shock, if you will, while I wait for the coilovers to get ordered and then come in. But this makes it a roller, you know, just to go in and out of the driveway or back and forth in the shop, whatever I need. It is officially on its own weight now. I went ahead and threw the Mustang wheels on. It's just a mismatch of sizes. None of them fit properly. I kind of like how meaty that one looks in the front. But this rear one is all up into the fender well. You can see it, like, it's basically scraping on the wheel. Doesn't matter to me because this is just to push it out into the driveway and back into the shop. But eventually we will need to do a proper measurement, and I got a tool for that to get our sizing, offset, tire size, wheel size, all of that stuff figured out so I can order some custom wheels. But man, having it down on its own weight feels like a huge jump in progress. I pushed it outside and threw the front clip on so I can just kind of get an idea of what it's all looking like. Also, I can verify where that front wheel falls in the fender opening. I'm super happy with that. You can kind of see that it's an interesting kind of half teardrop shape. So that's why there's a little bit of adjustment forward to back of just personal preference on where it falls. I'm stoked on this. This also gives me an idea, you know, the front is going to be probably 4+ inches lower once, you know, the front suspension's actually adjusted on the right, you know, coilovers or whatever I decide to do, plus the weight of the engine. You know, it's sitting super high in the front right now. The back is actually pretty close to where the ride height is most likely going to be. I'll have some adjustment with those coilovers as well. This also gives me an idea of, these are 20-inch wheels, if that is a size that I think will work for this project, or if I want to go, you know, down to like an 18 or something like that. So that's something I'm still kind of toying with. I don't know. You guys can throw a comment below what you think I should do with wheels. I have a general idea of what I want, but I'm still figuring that out. Now that I confirm that all that fits well, I want to go ahead and pull that front clip back off, because the next step is to test fit the Coyote. So these are the engine mounts I got. I mentioned it probably earlier in this video, but these are designed to go to the Crown Vic subframe, raise the Coyote up. I want to say it's 1 inch up, and then it's adjustable between 2 and 4 inches further back, so that hopefully we have enough oil pan clearance that it doesn't interfere with the cross member. But that is yet to be determined, and that's what I want to work on next. So let me push this thing back in the shop once I get that front clip off, then we can start to play around with these mounts. Let me walk you through real quick how these engine mounts are designed to work. So we have 2 brackets that look like this. They are designed to utilize the factory hole. This is where the Crown Vic engine mounts went. It goes like that over the back. So we have a nut and bolt that goes through that hole. Then there's another hole in the bottom of the bracket right there that we need to actually drill out and put a nut and bolt there as well. So they mount there, and then it gives us this slot that matches up with the other half of this system. And here's the other half. So we have a spacer, and then we have this guy right here. So this mounts up exactly where the factory motor mounts came out. So we have basically a threaded hole in the block there, there, and there. Match up with these 3 holes, and then that gives us our 1 inch of height clearance. We have some adjustability right there that this slides back and forth. And then of course we have the adjustability I just showed you with that slot where this bolt goes through. So we'll have a decent amount of back and forth. No real adjustability up and down, but we shouldn't, in theory, need that. Problem being, I can guarantee you this cross member is not going to work. If you think about where those engine mounts are, where the exhaust is going to flow, they are very much in the way. So I now have the unfortunate task of grinding off all of the head of these rivets, drilling them out, punching out the rivets, getting this cross member out of the way before we can actually test fit this thing. Spent a little bit of time grinding out those rivets until I remembered that I am now the proud owner of a plasma cutter. So what am I doing? So I just chopped it off real quick. That thing is going to be incredible addition to the shop. So it's out of the way now. I will eventually go and remove all the rest of those brackets. It'll be even easier now that the bulk of it's out of the way. Went ahead and mounted up the lower engine mounts to our subframe and the other half to the block of the engine. So we are ready to turn this thing around. I'll put that pretty close to the ground, and we're going to try and slide it in, see what kind of fitment issues we got. Okay, here's one side in, and the other side is in. Looking nice. No obvious clearance problems. I'll put the weight on the mounts now. Overall, I'm really pleased with how this is all fitting. The only concern I have, and this might not even be a problem, is probably going to be hard to see on camera. The whole drivetrain is still tilted down in the back, despite the fact that my transmission is as high as it'll go. If I go any higher, it's touching the floor pan, so that can't go any higher. The only way to correct this anymore would be to lower the front of the engine mounts. If you remember, I ordered raised engine mounts because I thought we were going to need them for oil pan clearance. I know it's going to be nearly impossible for you guys to see, but right there is our oil pan to the cross member. We have plenty of clearance. Honestly, it's probably like 2+ inches. So I'm going to take a picture of this, send it to the company that makes these engine mounts and say, hey, is this amount of tilt going to cause me any kind of issues? If so, can we maybe swap out for non-raised engine mounts? And I think that'll probably get us closer to where we need to go. I do need to fabricate and or buy a rear transmission cross member and mount. I don't have anything back there right now. It's just being held up by the jack. So that's the next step now that I know everything is fitting. I'm really stoked on how the exhaust is fitting. You can see I definitely needed to remove that cross member. It would have went right into the cat right there, but all that's really nice. Firewall clearance is not too crazy. Let's look at steering linkage. Oh yeah, look at this. Steering shaft will go right next to the exhaust, right up to where our steering column will come down through the floor. I mean, this is fitting great. It'll probably be a little bit of a pain to get my oil filter out, but really not that bad. I should be able to just access it from right under here. Yeah, that's not going to be too bad. I know some people have to do relocations on those, but man, this is, yeah, damn, this is fitting together great. And with that big milestone complete, I'm going to go ahead and call it for this video. Next week, the guy should be done at Mars modifying my engine harness as well as reflashing my ECU to no longer have the security system on it. So that should be on its way back soon. And then we'll be able to kind of test fire this thing maybe in some sort of capacity. Next step for me now is going to be transmission mount, getting that figured out. Then we can move on to, what else is there? We're going to need to measure for a drive shaft, get that ordered. The fuel system is still a big question mark. I don't think I'm going to be able to utilize that factory Mustang gas tank, so I'm starting to look for some options. I'd like to have something here around the same time that the engine harness comes back, so that if we do want to kind of do a test fire, we have all of the components here. So lots to do still, but I appreciate you guys watching as always. We're making great progress. I'll see you in the next video.